I'm Jorge Briceño, Director of Instructional Television for KLCS, and welcome to Reform the LA Way with Los Angeles Unified School District Board President, Mónica García. On today's episode, we'll discuss how technology in the classroom is impacting student achievement and what technology will look like in the future. We'll be joined later in our program by Principal Dr. Felipe Velez and teacher Christian Quintero from the LA School of Global Studies to discuss this topic further. But first, a chance to talk with Board President Mónica García about what's been happening this month in the LAUSD. Mónica, good to see you again.
Good to be here.
This time around, I'm going to break from tradition. I want to jump right into the budget. There's no way that we can't delve into that one. Obviously, the governor just announced that some trigger cuts will actually go into effect. What does this mean for LAUSD?
This is horrible for LAUSD. It's horrible for the 35,000 kids who rely on us for transportation services. It's horrible for the people who have offered their services to us to drive our buses. And what this really means is that there is a section of our students who are being targeted by the trigger cuts. And so it's $38 million to us. There's no way that LAUSD can tell the families who have made commitments to be part of our magnet program, part of our special ed program, that mid-year we're not going to take their kids to school or we're not going to bring them back. So that $38 million cut to us is going to be pushed off to our July budget, which looks like close to $600 million of a cut to LAUSD. And I appreciate that Dr. Dacey and his team have said we're going to continue our commitment to these families. It is concerning to us that Los Angeles continues to be victimized by the cuts in California. And even though people said we'll never get there, these trigger cuts won't occur, here we are, December 2011. With notice from the governor that indeed our budgets are going to be cut once again. Really, the board and the superintendent have now launched a lawsuit against the governor of the state of California to say this is in violation of the rights of our students. There are federal mandates that say we must provide transportation. We are under court order by Crawford to say we have to have integration. And what we are most alarmed by is that this is year 5 of devastating cuts. So after we've already cut $2 billion of our budget, after we've let go some 11,000 employees, after scores continue to go up in this district where people have come together to do more than ever and accept pay cuts, furloughs, less days of school for our children, these things just don't seem to end. So we need a different solution. I think I appreciate the lawsuit as an expression of we have hit bottom. We embrace the need to do different in LA, the need to do more, the need to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse everywhere. But we cannot have continued cuts to services for students and families. And I know that there are no good solutions. I'm not saying cut other people more, but what I am saying is in order to rebuild this state, in order to achieve what we have all said California needs by way of its workforce, by way of its citizens, by way of where our kids are learning, and we're going to hear a great example today, we have to send the message. They need to figure out a different solution, one that involves revenue. I know Dr. Dacey has said everything's on the table for Los Angeles. So whether it's a local initiative, a statewide initiative, we're exploring everything. And it's going to be a very difficult budget year again.
Before we get too far from it, one of the things that I'd like for you to explain to us is that this doesn't mean that we're cutting transportation in terms of like just field trips or whatever. We're talking about students. It's not because they don't have a school next to their particular community. We're talking about kids who are going to gifted and highly achieving programs, kids who are going to dance programs. They're not going to have the opportunity to get there, and it's going to impact safety. It's going to impact their achievement, obviously. Can you help us understand a little bit?
What we know is we have had an extremely successful magnet program for some 30 years now. And we cannot offer the same to everyone in every neighborhood, but we do offer choices to families that we will provide the transportation to get them to that magnet school that they want to go to. We know at Bravo Medical Magnet, it serves the whole district, not just the east side. We know that there are families in San Pedro that can't get to Bravo but for the transportation we offer. We know that there are some places like over in Lincoln High School that we ask students in order to get to Lincoln or Wilson, they have to cross railroad tracks, and we cannot allow that for safety reasons. There are other places because of the freeway crossings. We cannot allow students to walk that way because the school district would be responsible. So, and there's about 13,000 children of special needs that we are required by law to provide transportation for them. And so this is about an important choice for families. More than that, LAUSD has committed with these 35,000 families that we would provide the service. And so it is untenable for us to say mid-year, think about something else. And especially when we say we're committed to success of every child, when we're saying we're committed to choices for parents, and when we're saying build a trust relationship with us, it is not okay for us to come starting July 1st to say, guess what, the governor has targeted children most in need, and we can no longer afford these services. So it does mean we're deferring this cut to July, which means a deeper hit for us. But I hope that our lawsuit gets some recognition from a different voice, you know, that a judge steps in and says, this is not okay, you have to think of something else.
And I know we'll come back to that topic in a future show. I just want to briefly make sure that we address the fact that recently LAUSD and UTLA came to an agreement which is up for vote as we speak. Can you just touch a little bit on what that agreement is and what does it mean, especially in light of the reform that has been moved forward in LA?
Yes, so this agreement is historic. We are asking our teachers to participate in helping us get to either a yes or a no, but please participate in this vote. What we have seen is this agreement focuses on some of the local initiatives that we have celebrated on this show. Investing in the power of the professional, providing flexibility. When schools come together and offer up a path forward that neither UTLA or LAUSD would get in their way. And we're really embracing the idea that in Los Angeles, we need to have multiple strategies to get to that 100% graduation. So it is releasing some of the constraints that we have seen in the old contract, and it is asking our professionals to step forward and lead. And the best part, it's not for 10 schools in the Belmont zone of choice or 31 schools that have gone through public school choice. This is saying all schools in the next 3 years. And that's very exciting. So there's a lot of risk involved because we're saying as a district, we're going to do things differently. And I know for a lot of our teachers, they're thinking, what does this really mean for me? What we're saying is that every school should have a committee of people who get to decide who gets to work at that school. We're saying that we should ask our teachers to help us figure out what would work best with that student population, understanding that our very large urban America school district here, the second largest in the country, has students with multiple needs and that we need different solutions. So it's very exciting. We're seeing choice, we're seeing freedom, we're seeing accountability, we're seeing community solutions, and we're offering a step forward for the district. I think there are no just winners and losers, but there's a whole lot of opportunity.
Well, as you said, it's up for vote now, and we'll know more next time we get together, and we can find a little bit more about how some of those accountabilities are working from our next guest. And as a matter of fact, when we return, we'll have Principal Dr. Felipe Velez and Teacher Christian Quintero from the LA School of Global Studies. Please stay tuned.
Excel spreadsheet that they need to do in mathematics. So it is about the teacher using it on an ongoing basis, leading to the test. If the teacher have not exposed and used integrated technology on a daily basis, it won't matter, because this is not about just getting the results in a quick way. They need to be able to know how to use virtual tools online. And if they don't have that in their school, in their classroom on a daily basis, then they will not be ready to demonstrate. And that's what this assessment has done really strategically, which is it's not about, oh, let's get the scoring. It's about how do you use the 21st century skills to improve your learning? What are our staff's capacity to use that? I don't know. But anecdotally, since I attend all the principals meeting every month, and we have been talking about this, I would probably say that we do have a significant lack of capacity in terms of our staff to manage these tools. However, there's a huge interest in learning this. We made a decision to try not to tackle the issue of the PD for the technology component until we got some sense of assurance that we're going to have the infrastructure in place.
Minimum standards to access this. So is that what you're telling me?
It is, but I'm going to get Mr. Chandler to tell you that.
Validation is good. Mr. Chandler, your opinion.
Good
Or
afternoon,
commitment.
board members. Ron Chandler, CIO. Yes, this is to bring the final group of 138 schools up to a standard infrastructure.
So minimum standard, that would mean all schools
Right.
with this 99 mil would have minimum standards and access.
Yes, this addresses the last 38 that don't have that
Okay.
currently. Absolutely,
And
yes.
I really do not see a system like this. We're cutting every day, every hour, every minute. But we ought to have minimum internet access for every school. It's not fair for one school to have it in South LA and somebody doesn't have it in East LA. So this would level the playing field for us.
This levels the playing field from the infrastructure, and how the actual technology in the classroom is a different conversation. This
Yeah,
is
I know
actually-
it is, but
yes.
it will give them the minimum.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
absolutely.
Welcome back to Reform the LA Way. As mentioned at the top of our program, our focus today is on technology in the classroom and how it's being used to improve student achievement. The LA School for Global Studies, or LASGS, is one of a handful of schools in the district that's part of the New Technology Network, which uses a project-based learning curriculum designed to develop the skills needed by students in the 21st century. Joining us now to discuss this program are Dr. Felipe Velez and teacher Christian Quintero from the LA School of Global Studies. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
I would also say joining us now to celebrate change and reform and graduation are our leadership team from Global Studies, because we're just talking right now, you are a small school. How many students do you have?
360,
And
approximately.
in the Belmont zone of choice, that's revolution, because your students came from a school that was 5,500 kids at a point, right?
Belmont, yes.
Tell us your story.
Well, why don't you start? You were one of the original members before I came on board.
So, I had just finished graduating from the UCLA Teacher Education Program, and I started working at Belmont, and that's when Belmont was its big school, 5,500 students, 3 tracks of schools. And
24% graduation.
yes. And so the opportunity opened up that there was a school that was opening up at the Lucas site, the Miguel Contreras Learning Complex, and the school was the New Technology Network School. The principal at the time, Ed Colacion, coined the name Los Angeles School of Global Studies. And, it was exciting because it started with 9th and 10th grade students, about 200 students, and we were going to grow over the next 2 years to 11th and 12th grade. And so I was able to be part of that growth over the 4 years. And it was, we have a 1-to-1 computer ratio that's unheard of in our local area. And we have a strong model of not only project-based learning, but this idea of, social change and social justice education. And so we're really trying to challenge our students to think about what are the circumstances that we're in right now and how do we make them better?
Can you explain a little bit about what the New Technology Network is and how this project-based curriculum is actually working inside the school? Because we hear a lot of terms thrown out, but I don't know that everybody that's watching always understands how that translates to students learning more or better.
So NAPA, New Technology Network up in Northern California, some business folks and nonprofits and organizations came together and said, what do we really want to see in the workforce? We want to see students who are confident speaking in front of a group. We want to see critical thinkers. We want written communication to be really solid and to be reflective in our work environment. We want students who are able to, or employees who are able to collaborate and work as a team member. And so they said, why don't we create a new model, a new technology school where we're not only teaching these 21st century skills that I just mentioned, but we're also integrating technology to further engage students, to highly engage students, and to increase the access to college rates and even the completion rates of college. And that's the way it started in Napa many years ago. And it was brought to Los Angeles Unified School District, and I understand we started with 4 or 5 schools. We have 2 existing schools now, one at Local District 5, Student Empowerment is a new technology school as well, and Global Studies. And it was embraced, and I came 4 years ago, and I can't see any other way to teach. It's just the most exciting way to have students collaborating on a project that takes 4 to 6 weeks to see them figure out what is it going to take to get to this endpoint, how do we plan backwards, what do we have to get done, what is the research involved, what is it we still have to figure out, how do we make sure that we learn this. It's an exciting way to learn, and I can't see any other way to do it.
I remember the first time I went to the campus, you were having a career day, and it was when you had only 200 students. And I remember all the kids were dressed up, and there was a seriousness about the purpose of what the day was. And then I had an experience with Mr. Colacion and some teachers, and they said, 3 students have left us, and we know why, and they were able to name them, and they had the story. And that personalization, I thought, was really revolutionary in this neighborhood. Tell me about the impact of the teaching for the teachers and what that work environment is, and then the learning for the students, and what experience do you see, especially since you've come from former Belmont, because that doesn't exist anymore today, but in 2006, this was highly unusual for this neighborhood.
So one of the exciting things that came along with the New Technology Network is that we decided to incorporate an advisory program. And so one of the difficulties is when you have, when you're teaching a full day and you have anywhere between 150 to 180 students, it's really hard to know what is going on in each of those kids' lives and what is impacting them in their personal life. And so our advisory program is, each teacher has about 17 to 23 students. And in that model, we have that ability to make those personal connections. And so, you know, we call this a community-based approach to, let's say, to discipline. So if a student is having difficulties in my class, the first thing I do is I contact their advisory teacher and say, hey, I'm having some struggles with this class. Can you help me out? Can you talk to the student, see what's going on? And so instead of reprimanding them right away or, you know, go to the principal's office or, you know, get out of my class, there's a dialogue. And so that student knows that there's adults in their life that care about them and want to see them successful. And so if it has to escalate anymore, you know, there's a home visit, there's a conversation, and, you know, the student knows that there's adults all around them that are engaged in them wanting to be successful. And
So this is really one of those rare opportunities for our kids. Tell me about the philosophy or the thinking. Why would it be so important for the teacher to know what's going on in the personal life of a student?
It definitely humanizes a student. And so, you know, it's very easy to just say, oh, this student doesn't have the abilities or not capable or is lazy and just come out with a whole bunch of generalities. But when you get to know the students, when you understand that a lot of our students are coming from severe poverty, you know, what's the home life like? What type of struggles do they face walking to school, simply walking to school? That really humanizes it. And so it's no longer saying, wow, these students are just lazy and useless. Instead, it's, wow, this student is struggling because his mother just got laid off, or this student just found out that his father has this type of tumor in his head and has to have a surgery. Oh, this student just lost a friend, or, you know, so you really start looking at the student instead of just generalizing, and that for me is really powerful.
I wanted to add, I wanted to add that the way it's structured, every single advisory is about 20 to 22 students per teacher, 20 to 1 ratio. And it's structured so that it's a circle of students having a conversation, and it feels like a real community. And you don't have anyone standing, looking down at the students, so everyone is an equal member in a circle, sitting down and having these rich conversations, and it's multi-grade. So you have 9, 10, 11, 12, so the teacher follows a student over the 4 years to graduation.
I just wanted to share
Yeah.
actually something that happened a few weeks ago, and a student in my 11th grade class was having struggles, and he's had struggles all 3 years, excuse me, but this day in particular, he was crying and visibly upset, and I said, "What's going on?" And he mentioned that his mom has a tumor and she's gonna have surgery soon, and he's having real struggles. And the first thing I said to him is, "Have you talked to your advisory teacher about this?" "No." I go, "Why not?" "Have you talked to your advisory class and check-ins?" "No." "Why not?" And so I said, "Why don't you talk to them and see what they have to share, maybe somebody else, because you're not alone. I know this happens throughout our whole class, our whole school." And so what he did was he went to advisory for that check-in that day, and I had sent an email over to his advisory teacher saying, "Hey, if he decides to mention something, please, support him as much as you can." And he did. He shared. And the first response he got was from another student. "My father died last year from that same thing." And so immediately he's, I'm not alone. And so, it's still a struggle. He still has his good days and bad days, but the reality is he knows that he's got a network of people who care about him and will talk with him.
Wow.
Yeah,
You know,
it's pretty powerful.
With all
Yeah.
these schools that we've seen now over the last many shows that we've done, one of the things that's become very evident is that while we're having these large-scale reforms in our district, it seems that it always comes down to that one-on-one connection that these small schools are able to make with the students, and it seems like that reform is taking place almost one student at a time, and I find that incredibly uplifting that the center of all this is students. I want to divert for a second and ask you about the success you're having and that you are a national demonstration site for the New Technology Network. Tell us a little bit about how that works and what kind of prestige that brings to your school.
So the demonstration site process involves numerous visits from the network. So we have people on a national level who come and visit the school, and they look at a criteria of collaboration among teachers, use of ECHO and the technology suite of tools that is connected to New Tech Network, the level of courses and the rigor of the courses and the way we work together and plan, the culture and the climate. So every aspect of the school is looked at, and they said this is a model school in every aspect. So we have as a member of the New Tech Network, we use what's called the ECHO suite of tools, and this is where the technology piece is very exciting. Is we use the suite of tools in order to engage students in the process of developing their projects. So students would go into the computer, access their accounts. Every single student has an email account. Every single student has an ECHO account, and in that world, in that technology world, they get to communicate with the teacher through a project briefcase as an entry document, and there's all these pieces. So when they looked at this piece in terms of the use of ECHO and how we're using technology, they said this is a model school in terms of the use of technology. Christian can go into more detail in terms of how they use their technology, but it's a non-negotiable. So that's from wall to wall for the entire school. And the culture and climate is a big piece. They talk to students. So if you really want to get a strong story, you talk to the students. And when you start hearing what they have to say and what they have to say about the school and about technology and how prepared they feel for college, then you get the power of the story. They talk to other constituents. We have community members. We have actually families now who come to our school and actually visit classrooms and give us feedback. And so that was a big piece as well that they noted in our report. And also the level of collaboration that's taking place among the staff. We have, when we first started, it was a team teaching approach. So Christian teaches with another teacher and is co-teaching the humanities, English and social studies. So the degree to which we see interdisciplinary connections is also pretty, that's the reform DLA ways. What we're looking for is that those connecting the dots and making those connections, and we're doing that more and more as we go along. We're moving now into interdisciplinary projects that are grade level. So as we speak, every single grade level is working on a grade level project. We're calling them anchor model projects. And there's a lot of preparation going into it, but we're infusing the technology. We're seeking linked learning certification, so we're looking to integrate design, media, and social change as a lens to integrate the curriculum. And we're also going to do the math, the humanities, all in one project. And we're looking now to see what do students say about this project proposal to bring their voice in before we develop it. So by April, we expect to have this amazing project that's going to bring in the community partners. It's going to involve all the different curriculum areas, and it's going to have that student voice, authenticity, assessment. Everything is going to be in their application, so that we can have something we can model, for the district and in terms of what real, true engagement looks like. And it's exciting. So my point is that it takes a collaborative staff to be able to say, we value this because we know the impact it's going to have on students. And it's so valued that, you go into PD at any given time, any Tuesday, and you see the staff working grade level teams debating and having conversations and trying to figure it out. And that's the magic. If you have people who care and they're willing to collaborate and work together, anything can happen.
Now, can you say a little bit about the teachers who came and were part of that formative group? Because who wanted to do this? I mean, I'm imagining people are really working hard, and there's a lot of personal commitment, and there's an expectation and advisory that I can really hold and be with students who are sharing, my mother's dying, or I'm having this crisis. And that's a little different than being a traditional teacher, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So that was part of the interview process. And so in our first few years, before the budget cuts started really impacting our school, there was a 3-stage hiring process. So the first was an initial meeting with the principal, and the principal would give the go-ahead, hey, go ahead, you teachers need to meet with him. So then the next step would be the teachers meeting with the potential teacher, explaining all the different responsibilities, explaining what it means to be committed to a project-based learning curriculum, what it means to be an advisory teacher, what it means to use the ECHO suite of tools. And then the third stage was a student interview. And so we had rubrics for each stage. And if it came to two teachers who both had a great resume, great interviews, and the go-ahead from everyone, we would have a model lesson. And
that's wonderful. What we hear is, I know I have to cut you off, but we're hearing teachers were leading, and we're hearing students are benefiting. Thank you, Dr. Velez. Thank you, Mr. Quintero. Thank you, Jorge. And thank you for joining us. If you want to learn more about this reform or any reform taking place at the LAUSD, or to contact me, visit lausd.net. As we continue to reform our schools in order to create the best educational opportunities for our students, it requires all of us to do our part. I'm Mónica García. Together we will reform education, achieve 100% graduation, and make the LAUSD the best school district in the nation. Stay with us.